Good morning. My name's Andrew Robinson and I'm Business Development Manager here at COPTRZ, specifically for training. This morning I wanted to talk to you with regards to LCAS, the funding process and the opportunities that are out there in the commercial marketplace for individuals that have used drones and UAVs during their service career. By way of introduction, here's a bit of background. I was the initial person that basically made the LCAS application, so I understand the procedure and some of the particular issues that serving personnel and leaving personnel, for that matter, can face when they come to apply for LCAS funding for particular training courses that they'd like to take. Certainly at the moment, I think there's an increasing amount of interest and opportunities available across the UAV industry. It's expanding at an exponential rate. And for interested parties that are looking to find a second career once they finish their service careers, it's certainly something that I think is worth considering. There's also a local and both international demand for qualified UAV operators. And given the nature of forces personnel and how their service careers have taken them overseas, this is something that I'd like to discuss as well as we move through the presentation. So through the course of this webinar, I'll be looking at the current marketplace, where the opportunities are and where we think they're going to go in the future, the courses that we've had approved for LCAS funding, what you need to do in terms of accessing your ELC funds, why you should choose ourselves, and then an opportunity if there's any questions from the listeners out there which you can ask me. So to begin, if we start looking at the UK UAV marketplace, for the last decade, there's been an increasing amount of correspondence, of job opportunities and developments within that marketplace. PricewaterhouseCoopers, who are managing consultants and affect a number of studies into various industry verticals, have estimated that the value of the UK commercial marketplace is going to be on or around £42 billion by 2030, which is a vast increase in terms of expenditure in the next decade. The Civil Aviation Authority themselves estimate that there's going to be a requirement for about 20,000 pilots within the next 5 years. And if you plot that against the current number of active pilots in the UK, which we estimate to be about 6,500 to 7,000, that's a threefold increase in the number of active pilots that are going to be needed. There aren't many industries which I think can look forward to a threefold increase over 5 years. So again, from COPTRZ's perspective, we just see the UAV industry expanding at a rapid rate and obviously creating amazing potential and opportunities for those individuals that are coming into it now in 2020. The hype cycle and technology adoption graph to the right here basically just plots the standard way that new technology enters the marketplace. If you look at the top graph, this basically plots the expectations that individuals have about how the work and available opportunities out in the marketplace are due to develop. At the first part of the graph, you see that there is a massive spike in awareness and a number of early adopters basically move into the marketplace with inflated expectations about the opportunities and commercial opportunities similarly that are available out there. Quite often the expectation is greater than the actual demand. So frequently you find that you enter the trough of disillusionment where you have a number of early adopters who basically suddenly find that there isn't the level of work there that they expected. However, as time continues, there is just an increase in the number of commercial jobs, opportunities and tenders out there. And where we see the marketplace going at the moment, instead of plateauing, we expect the actual range of job opportunities out there to increase, as I say, certainly for the next decade and almost certainly beyond that. In terms of the lower graph, this probably plots the actual opportunities that are out there. So initially, the early adopters find that there is a chasm where, if you like, their services are not being picked up by commercial opportunities. But we've now entered the period of early majority. When I was talking to individuals towards the middle and end of last summer, it was very difficult getting hold of them because all of them were out basically working on projects. where we see sort of the opportunities still emerging are we're still in that early majority phase. The number of commercial opportunities are only going to increase, and rather a tail off that you're currently seeing with the late majority, we anticipate that the early majority sort of growth curve will continue for the next decade at least, and possibly beyond that, as more and more applications using UAV technology appear, and as changes to legislation allow more adventurous types of missions, such as extended visual line of sight and beyond visual line of sights, to be undertaken. So, is it right for me? Having said that basically the UAV industry in the UK is going to triple in size in the next 5 years, one of the reasons that we fought so hard to get LCAS accreditation is that forces personnel, generally speaking, are particularly suited to roles within the industry. There's a number of reasons for that. Quite frequently, whether you've served in the Army, the RAF, or the Navy, you may have come across and used drones at some stage in your service career. We find that members of the armed forces have also great risk assessment abilities. They're very used to following protocols, and probably most importantly, once you start undertaking commercial missions within the UK airspace, the ability to take individual responsibility for each and every mission that you fly is a paramount skill that all UAV and successful UAV pilots need to master. It's quite amazing that of the number of pilots that have come through the academy here at COPTRZ, probably about 20% or so don't ever actually use their permission in vengeance. There's a number of reasons for that. Quite often it's something they've sort of taken on to complement their existing business. But more frequently, it's because they don't actually have the right mindset to meet the demands and make the risk assessment and ultimately take the responsibility to fly those missions out in commercial airspace. Let's not beat around the bush. Ultimately, you're going to be flying a vehicle in the air that basically is going to interact with commercial airspace. There's quite a number of factors that all UAV pilots need to be aware of in terms of the risk assessment and the areas where they can fly safely. Quite often these can be mitigated by flying very early or late in the day. But as I say, we found that forces personnel, who probably make up about 8% to 10% of the candidates that come through the COPTRZ training programs, already have those skills instilled in them through their forces career. So moving on to the actual courses that we deliver and that are approved by LCAS. First and foremost is the off-call level 4 CAA approved PIFCO course. Now, a PIFCO is an abbreviation for a permission for commercial operations. Any individual or company that would like to basically undertake commercial missions in the UK, and by commercial, that is those missions that result in a financial outcome for either the company or the operator, have to undertake the PIFCO course. What this will allow you to do is to prepare something called an operations manual. This is an operations checklist that each of you will basically follow, and it defines the steps that you'll take every single time you fly a mission. That runs through laying out your safe takeoff and landing zone, checking that your UAV is properly checked in terms of sort of safety and is ready to fly. It means having done a pre-flight assessment on the location where you're going to fly. And the reasons for this is that basically the civil aviation would like to see a protocol that they've approved, so to make sure that basically all UAV missions flown in the UK comply with their standards and have been conducted in a safe manner. So the courses that we deliver here at COPTRZ are specifically designed to allow you to create an operations manual and to pass you through your ground school and flight assessment tasks in order for you to apply directly to the CAA for your commercial permission. It's a 3-day course, and during that course, you'll basically run through ground school. That's 8 modules which are defined by the Civil Aviation Authority. An operations manual preparation. So this is by and large something that you'll begin prior to commencing the course. There are always issues and questions that participants in PIFCO courses have in order to complete their operation manual. And so we'll help them basically complete that to a standard that's acceptable by the Civil Aviation Authority. The flight assessment is delivered on day 3 of our course. It takes around 90 minutes per candidate. And what it will entail is that under the supervision of your tutor, you'll basically lay out your safe takeoff and landing zone. You'll use your safety kit to do this. You'll then basically run through your operations manual checklist and make sure that both your drone and the conditions and area that you're flying with are suitable for the mission. Then you'll basically fly some simple maneuvers using your drone. And as I say, once you've landed and safely completed that mission, which is flown in non-GPS mode, you'll receive your sign-off and basically then be able to apply for your permission directly. COPTRZ deliver PIFCO training courses at 10 locations throughout the UK. So there's certainly going to be one that's local to yourself. And with regards to the funding that LCAS offers, 80% is met by the ELC and 20% is in turn actually contributed by the participant of the course. To give you an idea of costs, the cost of an LCAS CAA course delivered by COPTRZ is £945 plus VAT. So the contribution of the individual will be around £260. We also deliver a Chief Pilots Award. Now, this is a level 5 Ofqual accredited course. And I've actually just had a quick message pop up here, a question just asking what is Ofqual. Ofqual are the body that administer the educational and examination standards in the UK. To gain LCAS accreditation, all the courses that you can apply for funding for need to be benchmarked against these standards. The Ofqual Level 5 award is equivalent to having completed the first year of an HNC, whereas the Ofqual Level 4 award is the equivalent to completing completing your A-levels rather. Now, with regards to the Chief Pilots Award, it is the only elevated and qualification available out there for drone pilots. It's a 3-day course and it focuses very much on operational management. So with regards to responsible managers that are basically managing small fleets or teams of UAV pilots, it focuses very much on both hardware and on team management and logging. Operational safety case planning is something that's on the increase. So if you wish to fly basically closer to individuals or buildings that aren't under your control, you need to apply to the CAA for an OSC. So during the course of the Chief Pilots Award, we'll discuss techniques and the approach that you need to take to basically apply for that OSC. And also the third factor will be human factors and airmanship. So an examination of the human factors that can affect drone missions and the required skills that are needed by individuals to basically undertake those missions safely. In terms of who the course is appropriate for, as I say, as time is moving on, the level and complication of UAV missions that are being undertaken in the UK is increasing exponentially. If you go back 5 years ago, quite often it was relatively simple missions being undertaken by individuals, generally looking at grabbing visual data when flying their mission, be it of roofs or potentially golf courses or a number of different scenarios. What we're finding now is that level of complication is increasing exponentially. UAV managers out there without guidance are basically coming up with their own standards in terms of operations and equipment management. And what our Chief Pilots Award aims to do is basically instill in you the best practice and some structure with which you can better manage the teams under your control. In terms of the industry verticals where we're seeing sort of the use of drones increase, clearly the emergency services, the fire service, police force, and search and rescue are now looking and managing sort of much larger teams of UAV pilots. Within academia, both tertiary and university level education now are using drones extensively for data collection purposes. And since there are a number of siloed individuals within many faculties, universities are now moving to a point where they're looking to either appoint a university or faculty-wide responsible manager who will be responsible for both the kit and for all the pilots within that particular department. The construction industry has been one of the early adopters of drone technology. Clearly, there's some great returns in terms of health and safety and indeed return on investment. To conduct timeline photographies, volumetric surveys, so a method of basically getting an idea of the volume of aggregates that are on site, and indeed for surveying purposes for both small and large projects. There are opportunities there within the larger construction and surveying companies to basically adopt and appoint chief pilots to manage the growth of their drone applications there. And finally, within the energy, utilities and inspection marketplace, recent technological and hardware advancements have basically now created drones that are capable of doing hazardous space inspections. Within the energy marketplace, certainly the use of drones to replace human beings in terms of inspecting their infrastructure and undertaking more hazardous missions is increasing again widely across the board. And so the need there for chief pilots is clear to see. Once again, you can apply for the Chief Pilots course using your LCAS credits. Once again, 80% of the course costs can be funded by ELC contribution, and the remainder of the contribution needs to be paid by the particular individual. With regards to costings for the Chief Pilots Award, the course costs £2,000 plus VAT, so £2,400, meaning that the contribution from the individual will be 20% of £2,400, namely £480. Again, I had another quick question pop up here. How frequently do you run your courses? The Chief Pilots Award is run 3 times a year and generally run from our Leeds HQ. With regards to our PIFCO courses, they're run probably 10 to 15 times a week. Certain locations are visited more frequently depending on the volume of interested parties, but we deliver training both in Northern Ireland, in Scotland and throughout the UK. So as I mentioned, if you've got any particular questions with regards to dates or times of these courses, then have a look at our website, which is COPTRZ.com, and refer to the training tab, which details the locations and all the up and coming dates. If you've any queries, then by all means contact one of the UAV strategists or training professionals here at COPTRZ, or alternatively, you can send a query through our website and we'll respond within probably normally 4 hours. So how do individuals actually apply for LCAS funding? Well, first and foremost, the purpose of LCAS was to promote lifelong learning amongst the armed forces. Primarily, it's to make sure that they have careers that they can approach and develop their skill sets within before leaving service. So LCAS applications can be made to your resettlement or education office prior to departure from the armed forces. I have heard anecdotally that if the courses that you plan to undertake will benefit your service career, there is some flexibility in terms of when that funding will be allowed. And in a couple of instances, we've had individuals on our courses who are still 2 years away from actually leaving the service. So I'd suggest an early conversation with either your resettlement or education officer just to discuss your plans for once you hit Civvy Street, and to explore the opportunities that are out there both within the drone industry and how you can access your LCAS credits would be a very good idea. In terms of eligibility for funding, funding comes in 2 particular formats. First and foremost, if you've served upwards of 6 years, then you should have a fund that you can access upon leaving service. For those that have served between 6 and 8 years, this generally takes the form of 3 £1,000 credits. And for those that have served upwards of 8 years, this is frequently in the form of 3 £2,000 credits. Now, these credits can be used 1 per year. So that means that obviously in the case that you've been awarded 3 £1,000 credits, you can use one of those £1,000 credits towards the cost of an appropriate course in your first year. In the second year, you can make a second application, and so on and so forth. Couple of pointers that I'd make here is that it's very important that once you've sat any course that's LCAS funded, that you leave some feedback with regards to how you found that course. It's used to pass on information to other applicants that will follow you along. And LCAS do take very seriously the quality of training that's delivered to leaving service personnel. I have heard of a couple of instances where individuals have been able to combine either one or two or three of their £1,000 credits in order to be able to take more expensive courses and increase the amount of funding that's available. And again, I'd suggest that you speak to your education or your assessment officer if you've got any queries along these lines. If you've already actually left service, then on our website and on the LCAS website as well, there are contact for your single service representatives who basically can again answer these questions you may have if you don't still have access to your education officer you dealt with during your service career. I mentioned a few times that basically LCAS will provide 80% of the funding for any LCAS approved courses. There is clearly a limit on the amount of funding that you'll be able to receive. So should you find courses that cost upwards of £1,000 and you only have £1,000 credit, then you would need to find the additional funding yourself. With regards to the application that you need to make in order to access your funding, there is an ELC form that's both on the COPTRZ and the LCAS website. To complete this adequately, you'll need the provider number from the particular training provider that you intend to use. The COPTRZ provider number is 10710. And if you look at our website underneath the tab of LCAS training courses, it will also give you all of the course details and references that you need for your application. Again, our COPTRZ provider number. And you'll also need to fill in details of your period of time serving, your regiment and personal details and current location, all which are required basically to gain ELC approval. At the moment, I believe that ELC applications are being turned around in 20 working days, so that's about a month. So in terms of making sure that you've specified and found out the course that you'd like to take, the procedure that I'd suggest that individuals follow if they're interested in taking either of our courses is first and foremost, contact COPTRZ or myself. You can reach us on info@coptrz.com. Have a look at the timings of the courses that we deliver and keeping in mind the amount of time it's likely to basically get your approval. Make sure that the course that you're planning to take is at least 3 to 4 weeks forward. Let us know that you intend to make the application and we can equally then sort of make a note that you're intending to sit that course and we can then try and reserve you a place. Forward your completed ELC claims form to either your education officer or to the single service representative. And then once you've received a reply, they will forward to you something called a CAN form. This is effectively a promise to pay, which you will forward to us with your 20% contribution. Upon receipt of those two documents and your payment, we can then confirm your participation in any particular course. We'll forward to you the pre-course learning pack that you need to study prior to sitting the course, which just explains the procedure and the tasks that you'll be undertaking whilst you sit the course. And it also outlines some information on the actual flight assessment, so you'll be able to practice with your drone. I've got a quick note that's popped up here just asking, do I need to have a drone for me to be able to take the PIFCO course? And the answer to that is certainly you do. The guidance that we're given by the Civil Aviation Authority is to successfully sit a PIFCO course, individuals need 5 hours flight familiarity with the drone that they intend to take the test with. And this is quite an important point. We have had individuals turn up who've had many hours experience on fixed wing drones and have expected that experience to basically translate directly to quadcopters. My suggestion would be is that if you plan to take the course and that you don't currently have a drone, again, contact COPTRZ for a discussion, chiefly about the actual business application that you intend to follow once you've passed the course. Drones come in many shapes and sizes, and certainly at many different price points. And depending on your experience that you've had perhaps during your service career, or perhaps some information on perhaps a university degree that you sat previously, we can help you identify the industry verticals where you're likely to find the most success when you start prospecting for work once you've got your permission. Tied in with that, there's a discussion with regards to the appropriate kit that you need to complete those tasks. If you've had experience with surveying just during a service career and you expect to focus on the surveying industry, you'll need quite different kit and payloads to be able to deliver the information required by surveying companies and to the tolerances that you require, which would be a very different piece of equipment to that if you were, for example, going to undertake at-height surveys and work with buildings maintenance and inspection companies. So a call to us is most worthwhile. It can save you a lot of money in the short term. We can illustrate and give you some details on the new industries that are using drones. And part and parcel of our PIFCO course also contains an hour-and-a-half seminar on good business practices and the best way to start your business, and some handy hints and tips that you can use to basically develop your website, come up with a script to approach target companies, and other things that you can do to basically make a great first impression when you turn up on site for the first time with a new client. So why choose COPTRZ? Well, COPTRZ, in the 4 years it's been in existence, has developed a number of unique training courses specific to industry verticals. We are the only LCAS approved drone training supplier, and indeed have, as I've already detailed, not only the PIFCO course, but also the Chief Pilots Award, both which are industry standard qualifications which offer benefits to those individuals that take them in their business careers. I mentioned that we also have a business module which basically will help you kickstart your commercial career, delivered by myself. My background, I've had a business for 20 years. Within that period of time, I noticed that training and improvement basically dramatically improved our profitability and the size and turnover of our business. I love training. At the end of the day, there's an old adage that you earn what you learn. And I firmly believe that all individuals that basically enter any business, but specifically the UAV industry, should basically have a plan of CPD. Now, CPD is continuous personal development, and that can take lots of shapes and forms. It could be an open university career. It could be listening to podcasts relevant to the particular disciplines that you're interested in, or indeed reading or listening to audible books about any number of subjects. If you imagine that you're going to be a sole trader when you first begin your commercial career, then you're going to need to be a master of many trades to make sure you're a success. Not only an understanding of UAV operations, but also an insight as to how they're developing internationally and where opportunities are emerging, keeping abreast of new hardware and payload developments, and making sure that you make the absolute most of the skill set that you have, and that you're able to explain to individuals who perhaps have only heard about drones in passing, how they can provide benefits to their particular businesses, and obviously why you're the obvious person to deliver those benefits and undertake those missions. Here at COPTRZ, we've helped over 1,000 businesses across the last 3 years incorporate drones into their workflows. So in terms of objections and actually seeing firsthand how incorporating drones has helped directly both bottom line and help these businesses expand the operations that they undertake, we feel that we're uniquely qualified to comment on that, and we're always happy to share our experiences. Ultimately, our success is dependent upon your success going forward into the workplace, and so we are always here to try and help you out, whether or not you need advice in terms of sort of hardwares, have got some specific questions with regards to areas that you could basically look to attack in terms of business prospecting, and specifically the areas that you may need to improve in, which we can help with through our training program. COPTRZ are the first and only drone company that's dedicated and focused specifically upon enterprise solutions in the enterprise marketplace. We don't deal with the hobbyists. We're focused mainly and exclusively on how drones are basically impacting commercial organizations out there. And again, as I mentioned, I think we're uniquely qualified to basically comment and help you get your business off the ground, or indeed improve your current business, be you a roofer, or if you're targeting the sort of roofing industry, what's required and how you can best approach that industry vertical to basically make sure that the skills that you have are properly presented to your client. We're also the only drone training company to offer audited CPD training within the UAV industry, and our portfolio of training products contains both courses covering thermography, best practice within aerial photography and videography, and we're developing a portfolio of other industry-specific training courses which should be of benefit to you as you develop along your pathway. I've had a couple more questions that have just popped in. Do you host training courses in Scotland? Yes, we certainly do, both out of Aberdeen and out of Edinburgh. Again, as I mentioned, they are pretty frequent, and we deliver them probably every sort of 4 to 5 weeks. Again, give us a quick call or have a look at our website at coptrz.com if you want an update to the delivery schedule coming up over the next 3 or 4 months. Another question here that I've been asked, I've left service and don't know how to find my single service representative. As I mentioned, there on the LCAS website, there is a contact point for both the Army, Navy, and the RAF. We've also created those same contacts on the LCAS tab on our training tab on our website. So if you need to discuss that with your single service representative, have a quick look. If there's any particular questions that you'd like to ask before you go and approach them, then again, by all means, feel free to contact myself, Andrew Robinson, or call into the COPTRZ head office. I hope that's been an informative webinar. You can drop me any specific questions that you'd like to ask after this. My email address is andrew.robinson@coptrz.com. I'm continually in contact with a number of service personnel with regards to their particular applications. So continually, we're finding new ways and new avenues that individuals are exploring with regards to where they'll go once they've left the service. So if you'd like any questions answered, then as I say, please feel free to contact me. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be putting out another webinar in the next 2 or 3 months. So if you've questions you'd like included in that webinar, then please ask. Thank you very much. Goodbye.